At the dawn of time, a great wall was established by the Good Shepherd, a divine prison, unbreakable and eternal. Within its towering boundaries dwelled a magnificent dragon, radiant in splendor, yet cloaked in ancient evil. This dragon was Satan, the eternal enemy of the Good Shepherd. Do not be deceived by its beauty, for though dazzling to behold, it was a being of malevolent intent and unrelenting wickedness. From behind the wall, the dragon sang an alluring and wicked song, woven with lies and shadow, seeking to draw the sheep toward its prison. Outside the wall, in the wide and fertile expanse of Zion's haven, the sheep grazed freely under the Good Shepherd's care. There within his domain, he stood, watchful and unwavering, calling to his sheep as they walked in his provision and peace. The Good Shepherd's love for his sheep was boundless, so profound that one day he would lay down his very life for them, though that is a tale for another time. He understood fully the shadows that lurked beyond the great wall, and that is why he raised it, an unyielding fortress of protection around his flock. Yet within the vast expanse of Zion's haven, he granted his sheep freedom to wander and graze beneath open skies. Some stayed close, walking faithfully by his side, while others, drawn by curiosity and the soft whisper of the wind, ventured farther afield. To them the Good Shepherd's voice was gentle but firm. Do not stray too far and keep far from the wall. When the young lambs asked why, he would lift them into his arms, enfolding them in a cloak of warmth and safety, and whisper, "Behind that towering wall lies great peril, darkness that devours and destroys. You must never go near it." As his hand pointed toward the solemn borders he had set, he added, "See these boundaries? They are your sanctuary. Never cross them, to wander close to the wall." Held close to his heart, the sheep felt the comfort of his unending care. The Good Shepherd never let a lost lamb remain astray for long. No matter how far a sheep had wandered, he would journey tirelessly to find it, gently lifting the lamb and draping it across his shoulders as he began the long walk home. Often, the wayward lamb bore wounds, cuts and bruises from snares or thorns, and the Good Shepherd would tenderly bind each injury, soothing them with healing balm drawn from the sacred blood he would one day spill. This healing touch was but a glimpse of the deeper restoration he would provide, a mercy that would be revealed fully in time. Together they would traverse the path back to the safety of Zion's haven, a land of lush valleys and rolling hills draped in endless green pastures. When the Good Shepherd returned with the rescued lamb, a deep bond was forged, one that would never be broken. From that day forward, these lambs walked closely by his side, their hearts forever anchored in trust, having learned the mercy and the healing that awaited whenever they strayed too far. Beyond the great wall, the dragon continued to call to the sheep who belonged to the Good Shepherd. Though radiant and breathtaking to behold, this dragon's beauty masked a dark and deadly purpose. He used many deceptions and subtle craftiness to lure the sheep, but two stood above the rest: a brilliant, shining light that pulsed from his entire form, and a beautiful but deadly song that wove through the air like a poison. The first attack was the radiant light. It spilled like liquid fire, casting its glow deep into the valley of Zion's haven. At times, it was so dazzling it almost blinded the sheep, pulling at their curiosity and wonder. Many saw the light and began to drift toward its source. The Good Shepherd called out with a voice full of love and warning, "No, my little lambs, do not follow that light. Danger lies there." Most of the sheep near him heard the call and turned back, their hearts steady in his care. But those farther away, grazing and playing in the green pastures, saw the shimmering light and began to wander toward it. The Good Shepherd's warning reached them only faintly, like a distant echo. Though they had heard his warning before, they convinced themselves this time would be different. "Just a little closer," they whispered, drawn by a restless hope to glimpse the source of the dazzling glow. All the while, the dragon whispered from behind the wall, "Soon, just a little further, and you will be mine." His laughter, dark and cruel, echoed in the stillness as he dreamed of capturing another lost lamb. The second weapon of this evil dragon was a deadly song. He sang with perfect rhythm and pitch, each note crafted with chilling mastery. This was no ordinary melody. It was a song of death, perfected over countless ages. At first, it seemed like a beautiful, soothing lullaby, its notes shimmering like the dragon's radiant light. The music drifted deep into the valley of Zion's Haven, weaving through the air like a silken web. When the lambs heard this enchanting melody, many began to wander toward its source, their hearts drawn by its beguiling sound. Once again, the Good Shepherd's voice rang out, gentle yet urgent. "No, my little lambs, do not listen to that song. Though it sounds sweet to your ears, it is a song of death. There is danger in following the voice that sings it." Most of the lambs near the Good Shepherd were freed from the dragon's spell. The deadly music faded from their ears, replaced only by the comforting sound of the Good Shepherd's call. But those farther away, grazing beyond his reach, still heard the song and the warning, but chose to ignore it. They longed to see the source of such haunting beauty, hoping that if they could only glimpse it, they might understand. The dragon reveled in his dark art, singing his deadly song with cruel delight, knowing that some sheep would wander too far, drawn toward the wall. His laughter echoed from behind the barrier, cold and triumphant, as he dreamed of claiming another lost lamb. What the dragon did to the lambs he managed to lure to the wall, and worse, to those who crossed beyond it, was unspeakable. Among them were some who had never truly entrusted their lives to the Good Shepherd. Though they once grazed in the green pastures of Zion's Haven, they had never known his voice, nor loved his presence. They followed the dragon's call by their own free will, and their fate was forever sealed. Yet the Good Shepherd had offered the same love to all the sheep grazing in his pastures. To every lamb within his care he gave the same mercy, the same call, the same path to life. And though he would not force them to remain near, his voice echoed through every hill and valley of Zion's Haven, inviting all who would come. For love is only love when freely chosen. When these beloved lambs found themselves in danger, they cried out, and the Good Shepherd always heard. Leaving the others safe in Zion's Haven, he would set out on the long and perilous journey to bring the lost one home. Some had wandered so far, even beyond the great wall that marked the edge of his protection. Drawn in by the dragon's deceptions, a few crossed too deeply into darkness and would not return. The Good Shepherd knew who they were, and still, he went after them, again and again. Never once did the Good Shepherd allow a single lamb that truly belonged to him to be lost forever. No distance was too great, no danger too dark. With fierce mercy and unrelenting love, he would snatch his lamb from the dragon's grip and carry it home, back to Zion's Haven, where they would walk with him in peace, untouched by evil, forever secure in the fold of the Good Shepherd, who had never let them go. Through the long passage of time, the Good Shepherd appointed watchmen to stand upon and around the great wall, steadfast guardians, called to serve in humble honor. These watchmen were shepherds themselves, chosen from among those who loved the Good Shepherd and his flock deeply. With hearts full of devotion, they took their place on the wall, knowing the gravity of their calling. To each watchman, the Good Shepherd entrusted holy instruments of their task, a shield to defend and a sword for truth. Some would lift their shields high, blocking the dragon's false and blinding light, shielding the sheep from its deadly lure. They gave words of comfort and hope to any lamb caught beneath the dragon's shadow, gently tending to those whose hearts had been shaken or whose eyes had been blinded by deceit. Others raised the sword of truth with courage, striking through the dragon's enchanting melodies, songs woven with lies meant to draw the flock away from the Good Shepherd's care. But their duty was more than defense. They were messengers of hope, sentinels who reminded every sheep of the Good Shepherd's voice, a voice that never faltered and never ceased calling. When the dragon's deceptions threatened to claim a lamb, the watchman would speak words of courage and comfort, breaking the spell of fear and confusion. Through their vigilance and their love, many sheep were turned back from the brink, their hearts stirred once more to follow the Good Shepherd's gentle call. With slow, weary steps and eyes searching the hills, They would make their way back to the voice that had never stopped calling, back to the Good Shepherd who had never stopped loving, back to the safety and peace of Zion's haven, where still waters and green pastures awaited. Yet, despite the watchman's tireless efforts, some lambs wandered too far, drawn by the dragon's cunning and the false promises beyond the wall. When this happened, the Good Shepherd would cross the boundary without hesitation, going into the enemy's domain to seek and save the lost. There were times, too, when the Good Shepherd, in his infinite wisdom and tender care, would call a weary warrior down from the wall. If a watchman had borne too many assaults from the dragon, if wounds had run too deep, and shadows weighed heavy on their heart, the Good Shepherd would summon them back into the valley of Zion's haven, that sacred land of safety, where still waters flowed and peace was abundant. There, beside the gentle streams and beneath the sheltering shade of ancient trees, the warrior would sit at the feet of the Good Shepherd. In that sacred quiet, far from the battle's roar, they would lay down their heavy burdens and open their hearts wide. The Good Shepherd's voice was soft, yet unwavering, calling them to listen deeply, not just with their ears, but with their soul. He would teach them anew the ways of truth and love. The very essence of the sword and shield they carried. They would learn to discern the dragon's deceptions with sharper eyes, to hear the faintest whisper of his voice amid the clamor of false lights and deadly songs. The Good Shepherd would remind them that their strength did not come from the sword alone, but from unwavering faith and humble obedience. With gentle hands, he would tend to their wounds, both those visible on flesh and those hidden in spirit. He applied the healing balm of his own sacrifice, the blood that cleanses and restores. Through his love, brokenness became wholeness, fear turned into courage, and doubt was replaced with steadfast trust. The Good Shepherd would share his heart with them, revealing the deep love he bore for every one of them, and every lamb under his care. Even those who had strayed or faltered, he would pour into them a renewed passion to protect one another as well as the flock. With a fierce yet tender zeal he admonished them, "Stand as guardians of Zion's haven." And when the time was right, when the warrior's spirit was fortified and their purpose rekindled, the Good Shepherd would send them forth once more. But they would not return as they had been. They came back, wiser, gentler, yet stronger, a living testament to the Good Shepherd's grace. These restored warriors would take their place again upon the wall, not as hardened soldiers alone, but as shepherds of souls. They carried the Good Shepherd's light into the darkest shadows, and they would stand, side by side with their fellow watchmen, lifting high their sword of truth and raising their shield of faith, united in a cause greater than themselves. In the quiet that followed, the watchmen stood together, shoulder to shoulder, not in triumph but in shared understanding. They had seen much, endured much, lost and regained their strength, and they knew that pride was the enemy within. It did not wear armor or strike with fire. It crept in quietly, in comparison, in self-importance, in the hidden longing to be seen. So they reminded one another, gently and with firm resolve, "We are not the source of strength. We are not the voice the sheep follow. We are only stewards of what the Good Shepherd has given." There was no shame in their humility, only clarity. And with that truth settled deep in their hearts, they took their places once more, not to be praised, but to protect, not to be honored, but to serve, united not by pride, but by purpose. Together they fought not just to repel the dragon's attacks, but to bring every wandering lamb safely home to the Good Shepherd, the one whose love never fails, whose voice never ceases to call, whose kingdom of peace and safety endures forever. When a lamb strayed too close to the wall, or worse, crossed beyond it, the dragon's grasp could be swift and cruel. What he did to those he ensnared was unspeakable. A shadow of despair that sought to bind the lamb forever, but no matter how deep the darkness, or how fierce the struggle, the Good Shepherd's love was stronger still. With unwavering determination, he would cross the boundary that separated Zion's haven from the dragon's lair. He would venture into the very heart of danger, never hesitating to face the evil that threatened his flock. The Good Shepherd's hands, scarred and strong, would reach into the dragon's clutch and snatch his precious lamb away from harm. Tenderly, he would lift the lost lamb upon his shoulders, carrying it close as he made the long journey home. If the lamb was wounded by the dragon's cruel snares, the Good Shepherd's own blood became the healing balm, soothing, restoring, redeeming every hurt, and in the Good Shepherd's embrace, the lamb found safety, forgiveness, and new strength. Once back within the sanctuary of Zion's Haven, the rescued lamb was no longer vulnerable to the dragon's grasp. Through the rescue, a deep bond was forged, one of trust, healing, and steadfast love. The lamb learned to recognize the Good Shepherd's voice and walked closely at his side, no longer tempted by the false light or the deadly song. The Good Shepherd's rescue was a living testament to his boundless grace, a promise that no lamb would be lost forever. For his love was an unbreakable chain that no darkness could ever sever. And so the story continues, an eternal song of love, struggle, and grace. The Good Shepherd watches tirelessly over his flock, never ceasing in his call to each wandering lamb. His heart is boundless, his mercy endless, and his strength unshakable. Though the dragon still prowls beyond the wall, his power is limited, confined by the Good Shepherd's watchful care and the faithful warriors who stand guard. Each day brings the promise of restoration, and every step taken by a lost lamb toward Zion's Haven is a victory of hope. In the fullness of time, the Good Shepherd will make all things new. The dragon's reign of darkness will be no more, and the sheep will dwell forever in green pastures beside still waters, safe in his presence. Until then, his love remains the fortress around every lamb, his voice the beacon in the night, and his hands the shelter where every heart finds rest. For the Good Shepherd is the beginning and the end, the keeper of the sheep, the bearer of every burden, and the eternal home where all his lambs belong, now and forevermore. And so, this story lives on, not just as a tale, but as a living truth in the hearts of those who believe that even in the face of darkness, the Good Shepherd's light shines forever, guiding every lost lamb back home. The Great Wall stands as a testament not only to the power of protection, but also to the unyielding love of the Good Shepherd. It is a reminder to all who listen that no matter how far one may stray, the Good Shepherd's mercy never fails. While the song of the dragon is alluring and tempting, the voice of the shepherd is eternal and true. In Zion's Haven, the green pastures stretch endlessly, and the still waters reflect the peace that comes from abiding in the Good Shepherd's care. The watchmen continue their vigil, the lambs continue to graze safely, and the Good Shepherd's love continues to call, calling all who would hear, all who would follow. The wall still stands, ancient, immovable, a line drawn between good and evil, life and destruction. The dragon still sings. He weaves his light and melody through the winds of time, hoping the sheep will forget. He waits for the curious, the tired, the wounded, and still, the Good Shepherd calls. His voice echoes across every hill, every shadowed trail, every heart that wanders, come home. Some lambs have wandered far, some have stood upon the wall, others ventured beyond the wall. Some have even felt the sting of the dragon's grip, and yet not one cry has gone unheard. Not one lamb is too lost that can't be found. Still he searches, still he rescues. The watchmen stand their ground, tired at times, wounded often, but never alone. They carry the light of the Good Shepherd into a world that does not understand. They raise their shields for the feeble and their swords for truth. They call out into the dark, the Good Shepherd is near. Do not be afraid. And when the last battle is fought, when the last lamb is gathered into his fold, when the ancient wall crumbles, and the song of the dragon is silenced forever, then the Good Shepherd will lead his flock into a land where sorrow is no more, where no walls are needed, and where the only light given comes from the Good Shepherd himself. There, by the river that runs through eternity, the sheep will drink from the waters of life freely, and the Good Shepherd will dwell with them forever. Until then, listen. His voice is still calling, and his arms are still strong enough to carry you home.
serpent is glorious and grand. It draws the sheep from across the land. Across the distance a mighty will stand, placed there by the shepherd's hand. The good shepherd can be heard from a distance, calling his sheep to come back home. Come back, my little children, move away from the wall. Come back to fertile pastures where you will never be snatched from my hands. Warriors come and warriors have gone to take their place upon the wall, protecting the sheep from a fall. Shield and sword are raised high. The sheep wander far and wide, trying to cross to the other side. They hear the soothing song of the serpent, no longer hearing the shepherd's call. The good shepherd can be heard from a distance, calling his sheep to come back home. Come back, my little children, move away from the wall. Come back to fertile pastures where you will never be snatched from my hands. Warriors come and help herd the sheep back to the safety of the shepherd's keep. The warriors unite, they're on that wall, wielding their swords of truth. United we stand, divided we fall. Careful not to let pride be our downfall. Protect the sheep no matter the cost, even if our own lives are lost. The good shepherd can be heard from a distance, calling his sheep